great speech, John. Thank you for that lovely data dump. Well, it's not lovely really. It's ugly. It's lovely in that it's a very nice piece of data. It basically proves what my research. It proves very conclusively. Now, you just mentioned grey areas. Well, yes, people don't like to talk about grey or, well, analog thinking, I call it. Most people, the people who are falsely diagnosing people, are actually very digital, black and white, on and off, cold, as they're the psychopaths. So those businessmen you're talking against, they are psychopaths. You want to know why? That is why scientists cannot get it. People in the science professions, people who want to make technology work. Look, I'm trying to be a voice for these people, but I cannot seem to break through to any useful channels to lift you guys up. Now, I don't understand why we have having this, it's not fair on, there's millions of people around the world who are exactly it. They're suffering and they've actually turned into psychopaths because when you got no job, you're told that you can't work, you can't get into a job because the culture of the workplace is really distorted so badly. So much wasted talent I look at everywhere on cyberspace. It really sickens me. The problem is, they're living their lives like they're dying, and I've done research both online and offline. I've read articles. I've watched countless tube videos. I've interacted with people on all sorts of social, well, not all of them, but again, I don't like using the word all. That is digital thinking. We say analog thinking. We always leave a little bit of margin for error or forgetfulness or unknown, but problem is people like to say yes and no. You're in the workplace and they often hound you and say, you've got to get a yes or a no answer, not a maybe or an if or a what, forget it. But the thing is, in the 1990s, I'm trying to promote the 1990s attitude of the developers, and that's the way I get called. They all get called nerds and geeks, and they don't get any kind of praise or any kind of respect. The thing is, I'm trying very hard to raise media awareness. There's a condition that's being commonly diagnosed, and it is called Asperger's syndrome. And we've got I've witnessed many miserable YouTube videos about Asperger's syndrome, which I believe is what the majority of the scientists actually would be classed under. Like Bill Gates, they suspect he has it. Albert Einstein has very strongly suspected he has it. But basically, there's also a woman who's very successful called Temple Grandin, who's used her passion for a narrow-minded field to become not just successful, but she's actually produced products, a very specialised product for the cattle industry that people like. Now that's the thing, if we had a chance to give ourselves, if we could give the normal people who rule our lives, they rule it from top to bottom. They rule it from the workplace now. They won't let us into the computer games. Well, yes, they won't let them into the computer gaming industry. Our world is overheating because of this attitude. It's all driven by this obsession called money. And I really, I feel really at a loss to what to do, because we have to somehow pierce some major media channels which are run by the same demographic, which is a challenge. And that's the thing, people with Asperger's syndrome are called unempathetic. They're called everything that they are not. The normal people are the ones who I would tag as unempathetic as a general population. The way they talk is so empty and boastful, it's so inane. But, most of you scientists and most of you geeks do not have even what we call acceptable housing arrangements. A common issue we have is that most of them live in mothers and fathers' houses at the age of 40 or 50 or 30, and it's so humiliating. Another area of issues we have is that we know we don't have work. Most of them have been lifelong bullying victims, and that's all they get. They have to basically stay away from people, and they get told that they are, recluses. Now that's not fair. That's really conversing our lives. That's saying you've got to be a happy person without a job. You've got to be a happy person without, except while being told you suck. You've got to be happy. You've got to smile. You've got to break the mold. You've got to succeed on our terms, in our world. But sorry, I mean, the thing I like to ask, to pitch the question at their faces, is you've got to take, if they're accusing us of saying that one of the things we've got to learn to basically challenge these people is basically say, we don't say, I feel this, I feel that. We just pitch the question right in their faces. Well, we can't do it aggressively, but we say, well, how would you feel if you didn't have a home? If you lived at mum's and dad's place? If people teased you and said, you have no, you've got to get a job. You've got no money. You're trying to find a way of getting a job that's meaningful. How would you feel if you're on a disability pension just because you've got Asperger's syndrome? I reckon, and they say 85% of them can work. It's just workplace culture that's disabling them. Now that's really, and they're costing taxpayers money, billions of dollars. Now the thing is, I know that we can break this mold. The only way we can break it is if we somehow form our own unified voice. If we can, we don't have much power just doing it locally, because they're the local experts. They talk to each other. They are experts at crowdsourcing. Why? Because they've been doing it for so long. 20 years is basically the time frame when things started to fall apart. Thing is, I cannot let it happen, but the problem is if I'm just one person trying to pierce the darkness and I can't hitch a ride to someone who's got, I hear that you're a journalist. Thing is, let me just tell you one thing. I do not want any money. I don't want any fame. I don't expect any concessions here, because we're all in the crap. We're all in the poo, right? They'll always challenge us and say that we're sick. You know how humiliating that is? You know how small that makes those people feel? And, they were once proud and they once had a place. I want to bring back developer culture that was fun and happy. I've seen videos in the old days where, you walk like Silicon Valley, you could get inside there and people were doing fun things like riding unicycles around the building, but now the corporate structure we have today is purely boring. It's like stiff and stuffy, wear a suit, wear a tie. You've got to be people focused. Forget about programming. You've got to basically focus on the people, in that you're obsessed with people, but you can't get obsessed with your task. Now, that's just not, that is out of balance, it's out of whack, and then the money is what they are. They run the copy. Sorry, I just spurred that one out. That's my specificality. I've got Asperger's syndrome, but I am basically trying to help people, but the copier industry is overrun with rubbish. No, sorry, as in, that's how, sorry about that slip. I'm sorry for being aggressive, but I'm sick to hell of seeing so many people in that industry alone have just been pushed out of that industry. That industry was an industry that was really becoming humanised. It was looking so good. And then, of course, computing was following along concurrently. And my dream is to help repair this problem, but we cannot go back into the 90s where we can infiltrate the various tech industries. We can't do it anymore. I know that there's a lot of unemployed copier professionals who are just champing at the bit. Many of them are pulling cones. Now I've actually worked out how to trace that particular demographic alone, and mark my words, they can become psychopathic. They can become murderers, and then of course that compounds the labels of hatred against us. But of course it doesn't matter whether you're into the computer game or the mobile phone game. If you want to create offline games so that you don't have to pay money for what is called, I think, DRM. Because I think that, it's not fair anymore. We've got no power. We consume their products. They're obsessed with money and power and gain, and they won't let us in anymore. The only way I think we can do it is we can do it. We've got power we've got enough power around the world to build all kinds of amazing technology. Now we've got no gifts to offer normal people. We can't win their respect anymore. Most of us it's called a poverty trap. Most of them don't even know how to have relationships with the opposite sex because they've been told that they suck. And that's actually causing a genetic problem, because then the brainy people can't mix with each other and create. The normal people are like off the chain. What can we do? I feel helpless. I want to help these guys. I don't want to give up on them. They're going to die of all sorts of diseases, and because bullying and loneliness and unemployment is actually as bad as smoking cigarettes. They're costing money because to them, and we're an underclass. We might as well call ourselves, people from the Bronx. That's how it is. And when you got that reputation, you can't change. You got no money, you got no social status. What have you got? And that's when violence can break out. And we don't want violence, really. Now, the thing was, in the 90s, we had movements like photocopier art, which is what I'm into. When no one listens to creativity like that anymore. People were into media arts like computer art, video art. Well, I've had to make my photocopier art demos into video art demos so I can shoot them around the world in the vain hope that some person would be inspired by them and somehow wake up the community around the world. But I've been hammering cyberspace for 1 year, and I've had people responding to my videos. I've actually handed a disc of videos to a local group who responded positively to them, but they are still without jobs. They are still waiting for some kind of change. But there are people who I feel so connected with so many people online. Problem is, I can't reach everyone. We can't break this culture. My synopsis is we can form a Silicon Valley, or we can form Silicon Valleys around the world, but my synopsis is I want to create a big one in Sydney somewhere away from the populace, because people with Asperger's syndrome or people with scientist geeks, we will never be able to talk with normal people and make anything useful out of it. This is what happens. It's called friction. It's called hatred. It's called we don't talk, we don't say anything. We're talking different languages. So the thing is, we can't fight because fighting doesn't work. We've got enough war as it is. We can't win anything. We can't walk into an industry and start to prove that we are hard workers. Many of them are migrants, which compounds the issue. Most of them work in supermarkets. How humiliating. So my synopsis is that if we can create enough noise, as in if we can create enough of a voice, we then get the media active, because there are people, I've got a connection with a guy who shares my same vision. He shared it for about 20 years, tried to promote the good stuff, but the bad stuff sort of caught us all unawares, and that's what's won the fight. And then he said that there is a second chance. The only way we can do it is we've got to make a media rumble, but we've got to do it somehow, I don't know. And then what he can do is, my opinion is, he can basically create, because there are people who are not connecting online because they fear that they're going to get hassled. There's a lot of bullying online happening to these people. So the only way to connect with a large band of people, because you've got to inspire them. So if you can send artwork or video art or something that reminds them of the good days, and they can wake up just like that. And then the thing is, most of them won't see my work because they are closed off, and they won't even make their own work because they're scared. So I've been pierced in trying to do this alone, and it's not going to work. I get told, I feel really stupid because no one's, helping me. But basically, if the theory is, the game is, if we can alert a media channel and get them to somehow, I don't know, stream videos that are positive to the people who have no hope, they'll make them happy, then they can start hooking up online. We get them all happening online, and then after that, then my associate, who's a scientist, he had connections with the UTS in Sydney. They'll just give you that clue. And he wanted to build a self-guided photocopier. But it's not just about a self-guided photocopier. I'm also interested in other satellite interests like renewable energy sources, which is urgent. Tipping point, global warming. We can't live like this as a human race. And so then we can have satellite cities. We can have computer sciences. We can have people in the mobile phones. Renewable energies. Photocopier lab is a marketable product, by the way. And the copier industry, we've got people panicking there too. So gaming is of course a very close thing. Entertainment, whatever. But this is a long talk myself, and I can't give up on these guys, because if we don't form our own group, we will go under. And there was so much brains and so much brilliance wasted, and electronic waste is another area. Normal people are dishonest, Aspies are honest, but can you please somehow talk to your mates and just bring it together, because I really want to help. But thank you very much if you watch this. I might consider sending up one of my fun videos to supplement this, because I like to have both the serious side of the story and also show the fun side. There's got to be a balance. Got to go. Thank you, mate. Thank you, John.